as well.
Yeah.
So
And Ronnie, they were all good friends.
They're all good buddies. Anyway, so tonight Aaron Duran and I are going to warn you about a game called Sad Satan. We call that the digital Satan. I see it as more of a programming tool. That this may have been a programming tool for some people. And I'm going to bring in also my producer, Alex Cluden, to talk about this as well, because I want him to talk about what he experienced, because he downloaded the game and played some of it for us in studio. And he was pointing out things to me as I was working, and I...
Okay.
The decapitations and everything else that are in there are just sick and morbid and ogreish, if you will.
It's a game that's creepy if you just have headphones on and hear someone else playing it.
Yeah, it's definitely something horrible. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Tonight we discuss the dark web's Sad Satan game and how it could be a tool to program would-be killers or even those who claimed these theistic Satanists.
Okay, so there's this show. Let's see if I can remember what it's actually called. Ground Zero Media with Clyde Lewis. Now, my dad, I don't want to say his name, but just because I like anonymity and all that. But apparently my dad will call this guy. He'll call this guy pretty regularly, and he calls these how can I say this? He'll call these Republican or Christian, semi-Christian based talk shows and talk to them on these topics. And like my dad and me, I got tech in here. My dad and me are very different. We were raised a Christian family, and I was very, 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 very religious. And what ended up happening was I just kind of looked at all of it recently, and just kind of, with all the turmoil and shit that I've been through for the past, whatever, I don't know, maybe it's just life and work, but it's like, I looked at Christianity and I said, this is not an answer for me or for in my opinion, or for anybody else. But that's just my opinion. If you don't agree, that's acceptable. But my problem with Christianity, one of my many problems with Christianity, is Satan. Now, the Satan thing, there's no reason to believe in Satan, and I bet the guys on this talk show will disagree, because one of them is a paranormal investigator, and he claims to being possessed and all this stuff. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he has been. But the Satan thing is something that Christians get rammed down their throats their whole life when they're a young child, and it scares the shit out of them. And they believe it to be real. Like, real fucking goblins and shit running around. And the funny part is, Christians will tell you every fucking day that their side is stronger than Satan. But so many Christians are afraid of Satan. Like, it's so easy to whip up the fear of Satan in people. And, I don't know, they talk about how powerful this video is, and people call in, and so this video, it's called Sad Satan. It's not a video, it's a game. So you are just, apparently, there's no gameplay, except for you're just walking. You're basically walking through this haunted house, for lack of a better word, full of, there's all sorts of creepy audio, screams, and backwards voices, and down-pitched backwards voices, and they were playing the the Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven song backwards, and speaking of that, I have something to say about that Led Zeppelin song backwards. I think if you believe in that, you're a fucking idiot. And I know it sounds like a real asshole thing to say, but the only part of that Led Zeppelin thing backwards that sounds like anything is Sad Satan, which I can just totally chalk up to a coincidence. I don't care. And then, I've listened to it so many times, and it's like, if you really, 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 really try to hear what they're saying, which is what I did with religion, you can kind of sort of make some sense of it, but God, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And it's just fucking idiots trying to whip up fear in people, especially Americans, because the church has just kind of had this hold on humanity for so long, that Christianity has had this religious hold on people, and they have all these bullshit scare tactics, and I don't know if I don't know, man. It's just, it doesn't, like, I know that there's a lot of Christians that genuinely believe what they believe, and they're not frauds. But the Satan thing's not healthy. It's not healthy. There's no evidence of it, and any possession or whatever. You don't know if that's Satan. Like, who do we even know if the stories are true? How do we know if we're not just being lied to every time we hear a story about being possessed? Because I've never seen someone possessed. I saw someone in church, like, fall on the ground and was screaming and shit, and they took her into the back room. She could have been having an epileptic problem or whatever, but, and people talk about being pinned to the wall. Look, if you really believe that you're being attacked by something spiritually, start with medication. I don't care how bad it offends you that I say this. And then maybe continue investigating if you're still curious. But, like, what if there is something spiritual out there? Doesn't mean that it's Jesus and Satan. Like, there's a bajillion different religions that are very, very similar to Christianity, and no one's pointing the finger at them, okay? So, I bet if you went to the Middle East, or, actually, they probably believe in the same demons, but, I don't know, man. Every religion probably has scare tactics. So, this game, Sad Satan, uses very disturbing real imagery. You walk through and there's, like, pictures of dead people, decapitated people. It's got these creepy, echoey footsteps. And you can find all this on the, I'll post a link. I'll post a link for this, Ground Zero media page. I actually downloaded the podcast because they have commercials every 5 minutes and it sucks. But some lady calls in, okay, and she, I was listening to the audio and I was getting genuinely freaked out because I'm just a paranoid kind of person. And it gets in your head. The Clyde Lewis, the host, he talks about spirituality and stuff, and then he talks about programming and the human mind and all this stuff. And he's right on the money. He's right on the money with the human mind and how powerful, programming can be, and he talks about how people hear shit growing up, or actually he didn't say that, but he talked about a traumatic event, how it can scare whatever, and it's just like he's actually totally leaning into my opinion and from what I can see about programming, but he does not see the programming in the dark religious dogma. So this lady calls up. And she says, I was listening to the audio for the game on the show, and it's like when I feel the devil trying to get into me, that's how I know. Or it's like, she said something like this, and I'm like, just because they're using something that's been a scare tactic forever doesn't mean that it's real. Like, our minds are very, very powerful. Read into cerebral pathways and how they affect people. So, and to be fair, this show was not saying video games are evil. They seem pretty passionate about games. They actually have a co-host that's a pretty passionate gamer. I could not discuss everything in this Sad Satan podcast. But I recommend you listen to it just because it's really entertaining. But this thing comes from the dark. They call it the dark web. I call it the deep web. Don't get involved with the deep net or dark web, whatever they call it, because it's literally like a haven for all sorts of crime and horrible terrorism and violence and hard drugs and whatever. And that's where the game came out of, is so there's all these photos of violence and shit, and they got flashing lights, and this whole thing is programmed to get in your head. Like, they know what gets in people's heads, and that's it, man. That's all that they got in your head, and that's it. It doesn't mean that it's not powerful. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't avoid shit like this, because and like, I'm already aware that crime happens. I shouldn't expose myself to. It's bad for the human mind. You know how many people have fucking mental health problems and they subject themselves to this crap? So anyway, I wanted to talk about this in length, but I couldn't because it's like an hour-long podcast. I don't know. Maybe what I'll do is I'll clip out some things if I feel like taking the time. But the resounding point that I want to make, like, that just because the topic is Satan does not mean that Satan is getting into you, or Satan is actually genuinely frightening you himself. Man, you know how many times I've been out in the dark and my imagination runs away and I start thinking about ghosts and bullshit that I don't hardly believe in. It's just, it's our minds, man. So, anyway, I guess that's all I have to say. I want to say, if anyone made it to the end of this, I'm halfway sorry that I'm posting this on my gaming channel because it's such a religious topic, but this is sort of a game. Like, it's barely a game, but this is a topic that will become popular in the gaming community on the internet to a certain extent. Not like, it's not going to be a popular game like Call of Duty. It's not going to be, it's still going to be something you have to download a special browser and read the instructions on the internet to track down. Don't download it because there's all sorts of piracy shit in there, and if you listen to the show, it's really bad. And the guy, one of the guys listened to it, and he's been into paranormal investigations for a long time, and he went downstairs in the office to go outside. You know, he wanted to get outside and get a breather after all that. And he said he saw a face on a record on the wall on his way out, and it really rattled him. And of course, man, like you're scared. Like, this is what happens. Anyway, I'm not criticizing them for being afraid because I get it, but I don't. It's really hard for me to continue to listen to this religious fear that has been put into our nation, and I think it should stop. It's 2015. I don't know. Like, if the harder I think about Christianity, the more I think I wish the whole heaven thing was real. Like, I'm totally willing to admit all of it, but like, I see so much negative come out of it, like with stuff like this. Like, people are genuinely afraid of the devil. Like, it's especially children. And they, you know, how do you know it's not going to make them grow up to be an anxious person? So, anyway, thanks for listening, guys. I'm sorry this was so unorganized. I did not really know how to attack this podcast because it was so long, but this will go up on the gaming channel because it's games. So.